Hey, this is not the best camera for this, but this is just how we're doing the intro. And for everyone that's not watching, you can't see this, but we're also posting this on YouTube, the YouTube channel Drinks with Dylan. Anyways, thank you for being here for episode 2. This episode was sparked by a post on Facebook, basically talking about distancing myself from the music community and how that's been rewarding to me, both just creatively and all around as a person. I've just felt better because of it. And then I had a lot of friends kind of reach out, so we talked to some of them in the chat. We also have our friend Sam Dando, the bass player who's on the most recent record Home Couch, and I've played with him before on some things, here to kind of help reel in a little bit of my venting and thinking out loud, and balancing it with his kind of more clear, concise thoughts. So hope you enjoy. Stick around. It's going to be a good episode. Ladies and gents, welcome back. I've decided I'm going to name this podcast Drinks with Dylan because the one rule that we're going to have is just, having a drink on stream. Also, the random podcast would be a pain in the ass to relog into all that info. And I don't know how to do the whole, it's not an SSL because that's the website thing. There's the name for the link that you need. And to do it, you need like a SoundCloud with like infinity space. And then you copy and paste that shit. And then Apple's like, I approve or don't approve. And I don't want to have to deal with the whole licensing side again. So anyways, we're here. We're having a drink. And thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Sam, thank you for being here too, man. Let's get the ASMR
Thanks.
pop real quick.
All right.
Oh, there it is. Hell yeah. Ooh. All right, so
Oh yeah.
I mean, the best way to start, first off, cheers, man. And cheers to chat. Thanks for being here. I need a drink reset in the chat. Guys, we stream live on Twitch, by the way. It's twitch.tv/Dylan Mansour Music. I used to stream more often, but life's been kind of nuts lately. I'm sipping on some Monkey Shoulder, which is my favorite budget, like blended Scotch sipper. It's pretty great.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. Sam, what do you have though? Because you drink beer. You're not like a liquor guy.
Oh.
I remember this. We were on tour, and I was like, "What do you drink?" And you're like, "Beer." And I was like, "Damn, are you sure?"
I mean, I still drink just about anything, but yeah, craft beer is still my favorite. So I have my favorite local brewery, Moore Brewing Company. This is double dry hop, double space boots. It's a double Indiana, not Indiana, IPA, double IPA. But it's good. 8% alcohol. Put some hair on your chest.
Nice. There you go. That's what's up. So, team, what we're talking about today is basically, it's whatever we want. The theme of this podcast, and I guess, Sam, this is the first time you know about it, but that's fine because it doesn't matter anyways. There isn't, set rules. I don't want to have, a thesis at the start of this. I already make all these, videos that are very thought out.
Alan?
So, there's no anything. I just brought Sam on because I put up a post earlier talking about, and you already heard the intro, so you guys, listeners, know what it's about, but about musical happiness and some of the stuff I've been going through with it. So we're going to chop it up. Some friends are going to be in the chat as well to talk about their experiences. But for those of you who don't know, let me do a quick intro to Sam Slam Dando. What was your Twitch name?
Dank Daddy Supreme.
Yeah. Yes, Dank Daddy Supreme, Slam Dando. We went
I have many aliases. So.
It's thanks again for being here, man. We went to school together at the first college that I attended before I transferred. The bit more the thing I remember most was I subbed in for Everett one day in an ensemble. Sam plays bass, by the way. I should just say that now because I'm not going to address it later. I subbed in for Everett, one of our friends, and we were playing together, and it felt so good. And that was the first time I ever felt like, oh my god, is this what that swing feel that everyone ever talks about, or what locking up with a bass player feels like? Because I just didn't know for the longest, and I was struggle busting through all these entry level ensembles, and I never got a chance to fucking play with anybody better. And I was like, wow, I feel like I played 8 times better playing in this group with you and with... Carlos is hard to play with because he lays back and then I start dragging, but that's on me, not on him. But, it was such a great time, man.
Yeah, I still remember that day pretty vividly. I mean, that whole combo was just an odd experience in itself, in a good way. But, I remember those early times very well.
Yeah, the kitten shitting out yarn as the start of a song. That was the
Yes.
the instructor of that ensemble was a very unique guy. Also, cursing is just going to happen on the stream. I said, or on the well, I guess the stream too, but on the podcast. I said this last time because like it just is, and it's like the background that I'm from. So apologies if that offends you, but you know I don't really give that many fucks about it. If you want to see like really refined Dylan, you can go to YouTube. This is me having drinks, hanging out with friends. Anyways, so Sam plays the bass, and he started doing some production stuff. We went on a tour like a year and a half ago or so, which was so great. That was like the second time we played like my originals, other than that one time at our first school again. It was like the end of a year, and we played, and then you were like, hey, everything that you play makes sense now after hearing this. I feel like you just got like welcomed to like my head and inside of my brain, which is basically what my music feels like. So he plays bass. He's on the record that is probably out by the time this podcast is out. If not, it will be coming out. But he's a super dope bassist. Okay. So anyways, the post, let me fucking focus a little bit. The post I put up was talking about, I've been distancing myself from like music in general a lot. In like every kind of aspect, not like listening per se, but when you go to school for something, it becomes very like, I mean, studious, I guess, academic. That all sounds dumb, but like it really gets intense, and you kind of like eat, breathe, sleep it. And I think sometimes when you do that, you start losing touch with like the purpose of the arts specifically, and you kind of detach from like the feeling and the life side of it. And you know, and when I talk about writing music, I would say it's kind of like there's two sides. There's like the toolbox, which is learning all this shit. Oh, hey, thanks for the follow. I can't see it because I put Sam on top of that, but the podcast is going to have random Twitch sounds. Thank you for that follow. Appreciate it. How do I fix this? There it is. Anyways, so
It's Michael. It's McSweener.
Oh yeah. So I think like I explained it as like the composition thing. There's like the toolbox thing, and then there's like the story and the point of writing music. And when people are like, hey, I have writer's block, it's usually one of the two lacking. And more often than not, I feel like it's the story side. They're like, I don't know what to write. It's like, well, if you just try to think of scales and patterns and progressions and shit you learned from a textbook, like it's not gonna happen. So what I'd always say like to my students that weren't, you know, like younger would be like, I don't know, man, like go to the bar and have too many drinks and like wake up somewhere where you don't know where you are, or like meet a person and make mistakes, or like whatever, but do like something and experience something. And so I shared how I've been distancing myself from music, and how that's made me feel way healthier, not just like mentally but also musically, and how I feel so much more inspired and like creative and everything. And then Sam was like, I'd love to talk about this, and I was like, fuck yeah, let's do the thing. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts, man, because I know we've had a lot of conversations before where you're like, I think I might just like quit music, and even like before this record you're like, dude, I haven't played bass, so I mean probably won't be great, but if you want. And I was like, yes, I want, let's do it. I haven't played drums in months either, fuck it. But yeah, man, I'm curious like your background with it, and kind of your through school stuff and after school, kind of what you've found and felt.
Okay. Well, I've been thinking a lot about this, so stick with me. I might go on various avenues, but I'll start with when we were in school. You know, I always wanted to do music, and I knew that I wanted to do it because not only was it fun, but I've never been really like one of those people that thinks, oh, I'm going to be someone that changes the world. Because I think that's kind of pretentious in my own right, where I don't think that I have the ability, and I don't really think any one person can, but that's too much responsibility for myself. So I thought, you know what, I could be a musician, and I might not be able to change the world entirely, but I know that I can make a difference and change the world for 1 hour. And maybe I can make a difference in someone else's life for that 1 hour. And then I can do my part. And then, so that was part of it. And then the other part of it was, I always feared, my biggest fear in life was, well, dying alone, but then also dying and feeling like
Jesus, man, that got so fun.
No, but stick with me. But also dying and feeling like I was going to be forgotten, or that there's nothing that I left behind for myself. And so I also thought as music as, okay, this is going to be the thing that when I go, this is what I'm going to be remembered by. This is going to be my legacy. I'm going to have this, you know, catalog of music, or I'll have my bass playing or whatever in my endeavors, and that's how I'll make my mark on the world. So it was a big deal for me. It transcended just the I want to make money. It meant a lot to me. And I should say it still does.
Yeah.
But as you have your experiences and you get older and life changes and you start having to prioritize yourself and your goals in life, I started to kind of realize that I had to ask myself, what do you really want out of life? And I realized the thing that I want the most out of life is a family, and I want a house, and I want someone that I can be with and share my life with. And that's the legacy that I want to leave behind. And not saying that you can't do that with music, but it's really hard. And I didn't want to take that chance to give up the things I wanted most in life to play music and, see how that goes. So no,
yeah,
go ahead.
So how has that changed kind of where you like, because that kind of sounds like almost like a finite, like you're out. And I know we've like spoke briefly, like obviously you just played bass when I just was like, hey, you want to play bass? And I think it's because like we're tight too and everything. But do you still like, do you still like say yes to gigs? Are you still playing regularly? Are you not, like, will you take a call? Are you just like not actively pursuing it? Or are you like kind of where are you at as far as that goes?
Well, right now is quite odd because depending on when you're listening to this, if you're unaware, we're going through a quarantine because there's a pandemic occurring.
Oh, so that's right, big Rona.
Yeah, so the state of the music industry is, well, it was in shambles before, and now it's very much so in shambles. So there are gigs floating around. The thing is, I'm not opposed to playing gigs. I'm always down to, play a gig. I'm still taking people up on the options of recording, making my own stuff. So the option of playing music is still very open for me in my life. I want to do it. I love doing it. But the whole, I'm going to sacrifice everything to just completely focus on this life is just not the life that I want to live. And
Sure.
Which is what has been really great for me getting into production now with this time during the quarantine, is because as a bassist, whenever I wanted to play music, I needed other people to play music. But now as a bass player, as a producer, I don't need other people to play music. I can literally create my own musical endeavors and my own musical ideas, and that's been super awesome. And so it's, even if no one ever hears my music, and I don't know if I would want people to hear some of that stuff, but it's just
Sure.
been a very personal outlet for me, because a lot of times I'll create these things and I'll listen to them and I'll go, man, I know that I made it, but it feels like some abstract part of me that like I know is in there, but I can't touch it. But it's there because I just created this thing. It's clearly in there. So it's kind of weird how music has changed for me and what it's doing for me now versus what it did previously.
Yeah, man. Dude, there's so many avenues. This is going to be like a lot of like tangents and moving around, just as a heads up to everyone listening. But there's a bunch of shit that you said that was so interesting. There was something I was going to mention. I already fucking forgot what it was. So you mentioned you're still like taking stuff. Obviously, it's kind of fucked up. One of the things I guess that interests me is you mentioned and I guess this will kind of get down to like a little bit of the brass tacks stuff. And I'm curious your experiences regarding similar things. But when I first moved to New York, right, like the first year I was here, I booked more shows than I've ever played like in my whole life in the first year of being here. And it was all in the trio under my own name, and it was a great time. Now, for context, the people that I was playing with were all college students as well. The guy playing bass was a drummer who was trying to learn bass, so he was down to play whatever. And I trusted his like rhythmic sensibilities because he was, a good drummer. There's some instrument capabilities that do not carry over, by the way, just because literally making notes sound is different than on a bass is different than making things sound when you hit them with a stick. So that was, but anyways, and then my friend who was playing piano. So like it worked out well that we were all in school. We were all in the same classes together. We got together every week. We were playing like at least one show a month. It's usually like 3, which is like way more than you should be. But we were just playing like shitty gigs at clubs that like didn't pay that much. And as time progressed, right, especially going from school to not school, the pianist, who I'm sure will be on this podcast sometime soon, wound up doing this like corporate gig. He started playing these events on weekends, and he started kind of like shedding the shit a little bit to the point where he became an MD. So now, which is musical director. So he started arranging parts and all this stuff. I don't need to get into the whole details, but he went that route and started doing the weekend thing, and then got offered like a 9 to 5 position from the company for like a small salary, but like enough to supplement also the gig pay. And he was making like MD gig pay, and like he was doing his thing, you know, and he was doing that because he graduated school and he like needed to make money. Granted, he was working while he was in school and stuff, doing like a barista thing. But the point is, he had more free time in college. Then he graduated and was like, hey, I need to do this stuff. So, like, if I had a gig, you know, it's like if I can give you $20 a hug and, like, a beer, it's not the same as, like, hey, I'm going to go make $1,000 playing this other gig somewhere else, you know. So it got harder to play with people because everyone got busy kind of having to afford this whole life thing that we're all doing. And I'm kind of wondering where you sat with that. So I guess I'll let you go first, and then I'll kind of answer it. But I'm curious, kind of where that fell with you as far as that goes, and like the gigs. I mean, you don't have to share numbers if you don't want to. That's fine. But like, as far as like pay being like more casual versus not and stuff like that, I'm curious of your experiences post graduation having to like pay for things.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a whole nother big thing for me to think about because, I mean, as you just mentioned, I should say, there's a certain quantity of gigs that are out there, but there's a very substantially small number of quality gigs that are out there. And by quality, I more so mean quality pay. But the interesting thing about music, especially today, is that there are so many avenues that you can pursue within music to make money that don't necessarily mean you have to just go out and play a gig to make money.
Yes.
But the thing that I was running into before I got out of school was I was playing all these gigs, and it was like a trade-off because it's okay. If I play the gigs that I'm playing music that I like, is that worth it more than playing this gig and there being 2 people in the audience and me maybe walking away with $20? Like, does that satisfy me? And at first it did. But then as I was getting older and about to get into the real world, I thought, no, I just can't do this. Like, it's fun, but it's just not fun enough for me anymore.
Yeah, I think there's a line with that too, where like passes being fun because that aspect starts overweighing. Like, I'm playing music I enjoy with friends, where you're like, fuck, man, we've been doing this shit for 2 years, and like this is still kind of whack as fuck. And like,
yeah,
I think that because for me, I had a similar thing. Not to cut you off, but just to interject, like where it would start like that kind of outside factor of like, okay, but I got to pay for this shit and whatever else, and like, okay, I can pay for my cab home from the fucking tip jar, and that's about it. Like, that starts impacting the actual enjoyment of it too after a point. And I'm not saying you're in it for money, but like, as someone who's definitely done that, like sleeping on a floor, like having like cigarettes and like saving change for like hot food because you were busking earlier, like that shit gets tiring to the point where it can start impacting like actually just your enjoyment of it, you know?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I'm someone who also has suffered with in and out depression throughout my life, and so that was deeply tied with my music. There was many times where when I'd fall into a depressive state, most of the time it was because it was related to some kind of musical thing that was happening in my life, whether that was a musical strife, like I don't think I want to do this anymore, or this is getting really hard, I don't know if I still want to go about my life doing this. But then that's also hard because then you think, well, I've dedicated like a large portion of my life to this, and now if I'm not going to do it, now am I a failure, you know? And so it's just a very toxic cycle, and I think that falls in kind of the topic of what we are talking about here, in some regards.
Yeah.
So I realized there's not just 2 ways, but generally speaking, there's 2 ways of looking at it where you think, I can be a musician and go out and play lots of gigs for not a lot of money and survive the life of just playing gigs all the time and, you know, scraping by, or I could go and just get a real big boy job, and then I can play some gigs that I want to play rather than having to pick up all the gigs that I don't want to play, but I have to because I need to survive. And I would prefer to do the other route of, I want to just take a job where I'm being able to fulfill the value of the life that I want to have, but then I can fit music into it when I want to.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I decided I want to sit.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think too, like, I mean, kind of getting back to that, there's a lot of stuff that for me, you know, I don't know how much I spoke about this on the first podcast, but I guess a little bit about me. This is going to feel like some fucking ego bullshit. It's really not meant that way, but like, I've done a decent amount of things, you know, like in my own name, I'd say. Like I've done a couple tours while like in the grand scheme, if you're comparing it to like, I don't know, fucking like Iggy Azalea or like, I don't know, like Katy Perry or whoever's like some giant tour thing, or even like, you know, like Nate Smith, Nate Wood, like any of these musicians that are touring, it seems small, but you know, I was very proud of it. Like doing some tours and speaking at some colleges and schools, and some of the stuff that we spoke about too, it got weird because I kind of felt this like odd imposter syndrome thing with the idea of not doing music for a living. And I think the weird part of that was like I did at one point in time do music full time for a living. I was teaching at a music school 4 days a week, and like I was one of the like top paid teachers on staff. But that being said, I wasn't making half of what I'm making now working at like a rock climbing gym, which is something I also enjoy and like gets me a free membership to stay in shape. But like I did do that. So speaking about some of the things that I spoke about, including like music business and stuff like that, a part of why I wanted to speak about it was because like I felt like I did not get as far as I could, as quick as I could, because I didn't focus on that as much. And I think there's all sorts of caveats with like the admission bar of schools and like people needing just like black and white logistics skills, like just like actual tangible fucking can you or can't you play this. But then also like being aware of the music business and booking side. And I wanted to share this because I was like, I wish I was further along. I wish that I was doing this teaching gig and more gigs and doing more speaking and all this stuff. And like the transition of not doing music for a living made it hard for me to feel credible and valid, you know. And it's something that I deal with all the time because I'd be like, well, fuck, am I like good enough to talk at a school if I don't do music full time for a living? It's like, well, nothing is going to change what I've done. Nothing's going to change the tours or amount of shows that I've booked. Nothing's going to change the music that I write or the quality of playing that I do, or like that I endorse a drum company. Like that doesn't change just because I do something else. All that changes is I've had way less trips to the hospital this year. I'm like way happier, and like I've been eating way better food, you know. And like that was such a weird kind of gap to get over, because I feel like we vary a little bit in that like right now music is kind of like my side thing or whatever, but it's what I want to make full time, and I'm like actively pursuing making it a full time thing. And it sounds a little bit like you're kind of cool with it staying as like a side thing that you enjoy.
Yeah, so that was something that I had to think a lot about because it was, well, I had to clarify what were my priorities and what were the things that I knew that I wanted from life. And like I had mentioned earlier, I had established that I know for a fact what I want to have a family and I want to have a house, and those are the things that I'm putting at the top priority. Well, not a house, but you know what I mean, my own place to live, whatever it may be.
Of course.
But I'm putting those at the top. And so then now I'm not trying to force my life into shaping that, but I know that those are the goals that I'm working towards. So now going forward, the choices that I need to make need to be the best ones to aid me in those goals. And I had a lot of time to think about it because it was hard, because I had to accept the fact that music might not be that path. And that's hard.
Sure. Yeah.
But I've also had to accept the fact that, well, it may not be the path, but it still could be. Because who knows? I don't know what's going to happen in life, and no one really knows what's going to happen at this point. So if something works out and music is the path that I can go on in order to achieve these things, I'm more than happy to do so. But I'm not going to sacrifice those other things that some other musicians are more than willing to do so, and that's totally fine. But I just have to know that who I am as a person, I'm just not capable of doing that, or I'm not willing to do that, I should say.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I'm moving you on the screen because I'm looking this way to the monitor that you're on, not at the camera. And this way, it's a little bit less disorienting because then I'm kind of almost looking at you. You know?
Yeah.
If I do one of these, let me put the logo in the corner. Guys, we're on Twitch. If you didn't already hear that part, you should hang out. It's a good time. I stream less now than I used to because life's been intense. But you can hop in the chat and talk about these things. I mean, you can also hit up our socials. I'll like put them in the thing to talk to us about these things further. But yeah, man, it was weird doing that. And then even so, like, I guess getting to kind of the root of things and what I was more talking about, I went through this huge thing like a month ago that I needed to do for a very long time, where I just like purged all of my socials. And I know everyone talks about it, right? Everyone's like, I'm just going to fucking unfollow everybody and all this shit, right? And like, no offense, but everyone's full of shit when they say that. Like, I'm going to do this, that, or the other. Or they just don't even fucking realize it, and they just stay jaded as fuck about what they're seeing on their timeline that they literally control. It's like your own bubble that you control. If you choose to pursue news there, that's fine, and I get it, you want to stay up to date, but that's a choice that you can make. If you choose to pursue news elsewhere, you can refine your timeline, whatever else, you know. And so I went ham in trying to grow shit, right? And it's the same with streaming too. I've like been doing it less and everything, is like I didn't want to keep doing things that felt disingenuine or felt like work to me. And maybe that's shady and like a lazy piece of shit, but if you see what I do, like clearly I fucking work. It's just like
Yeah.
I'm focusing on what I want to do more, because if I pursue these things, right, and if I'm not enjoying it, then I may as well just be doing a 9 to 5 and make way fucking more money than trying to do this, and it feels like work anyways. Like, you know, like pursuing things like if I go to a jam session, I try to like link up with dudes that I want to play with, or like not even that I want to play with, but that I feel like I should play with because they're getting gigs or whatever else. Like, I don't want that anymore. You know, I have no desire to play at Smalls anymore. I have no desire to play like jazz standards with people. Like, there's a bunch of shit where it's like I just don't want to pursue that, and you feel like, at least for me, like I felt bad about it, and I was like, oh fuck, like if I'm not doing this, that, or the other. And another part of that, this is like there's a lot of segments with this, but going back to the social media thing, I followed all these musicians and I've followed all these companies, and then I'd see stuff and I was like, I don't know if I like the shit that this company is doing, or this new series that they put out, or like they're only working with this band, or like this is what I feel about like the drumming community now, or like whatever else, or what gets shared, and like this whole Instagram musician like I would just have all these thoughts and shit, and then I was like, I don't want to fucking deal with any of this. So I unfollowed like every musician ever that I followed on Instagram, because it's like, I don't give a fuck if you're famous and I like your music. If all you post are these like shitty posters that look like they're from a hookah bar lounge, like I don't give a shit to see that on my timeline, you know? Like, it's just not, it's not something I'm interested in. And then like unfollowing friends and stuff too, and it's nothing against them, but it's like, this is my own like bubble that I get to control. And when you live in such a fuck fest of times, it's like I want to control that and have it be enjoyable. So like what I'm following now is like old school fashion stuff and like clips from movie scenes and like romantic stuff of like Humphrey Bogart and some like the like lead role actress out in Paris somewhere, like stuff that inspires me, you know, or like nice clothing or like nice cars. My style tends to be more retro, so this might sound like some like trap house shit. I'm not checking out like Bugattis with like a bunch of $100 bills and like scantily clothed women. It's
you don't strike me as the type.
It's like old timey shit, but I find it super inspiring, man, and that stuff inspires way more music and way more work from me than like being bogged down by socials and seeing a bunch of shit that I don't want to do. And at first I felt bad, you know, and like I'd feel bad if I'm like hanging out on Twitch, right? That would be the last social, and then I'll let you do the thing. But like, yeah, I, you know, to see when I first started doing this, obviously I was unemployed and there's the unemployment bump, so I was like okay to not have to pursue a job immediately, so I tried to focus a lot on music stuff, the YouTube stuff, getting that off the ground, which is great and at a pace that I can maintain. The Twitch thing though, streaming every day and then like not streaming, like, you know, fucking like hanging out in people's chat and stuff and following a bunch of shit that like I didn't care about, and following musicians that like I didn't enjoy their streams and trying to seem genuine, or being like I just like didn't, first off, and then secondly I'd feel bad about it because I was like, oh fuck, I'm not hanging out, like there's this really big music streamer and I just don't like their stream. It's nothing against them, I just don't fucking like it. So like why would I hang out there to try to hope for like a raid or get followers and stuff through? Is like, well fuck, like do I really want to do that? If I'm going to give up that kind of like, I guess, integrity, for lack of a better word, why not do it doing something else? And the hard part with that is, to a certain extent, I think that can impact growth and start becoming like a logistic and like business side dilemma, you know? Like luckily for my YouTube channel, it's been growing a lot, but I found some subreddits and some places that I can post that have a lot of followers where it will get traction and get new viewership. Because if I just posted out to YouTube over and over and over without having those platforms to share, I'm sure I wouldn't see that growth. But, you know, if you're not like pursuing it or in the community, it's way harder to grow. But there's like I don't know, there's stuff that I do like and there's stuff that I don't like in the community, and navigating that, I was just so tired of it. I was like, fuck, I'm just not going to follow stuff that I don't want to follow.
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point about the social media, because the interactions between the music industry and social media is very weird, in terms of that I think the progression of social media has advanced so fast that the music industry and the music business side of it, and many things in life, just literally haven't been able to catch up yet and adapt to the settings of social media. Sure. And I guess what I mean by that is that nowadays, I mean, you could think about the music industry in the 50s. When you found artists, it was because they were with a record label, or they were just getting freelancing gigs and they were putting out records, and you go to the record store and sure, you can maybe find a record, and that's how you find the people. Maybe they get a TV spot or a radio spot, you know, that's how you got huge on the radio.
Sure.
And then with the introduction of MTV, now we have a whole new type of media where now it's the image. People are selling an image. It's a full package deal of visual stimulation along with the music, and that's where the industry, I would say, had its first huge real change. I mean, you see Michael Jackson kind of take advantage of that fully with music videos and his staggering of singles to sell Thriller a lot, which is a weird adaptation in itself for music. But now, with the extremely fast advancement of social media and technology, I just think that we are super far behind in terms of actually knowing how to effectively use this stuff. And now, because of it, the market and the industry is just already extremely oversaturated, because it was oversaturated to begin with. But now, the platform in which you nowadays will get recognition or build your following, literally everyone can do it. Before, you had to have a record deal. Before, you had to have someone paying you to be able to go on go on TV, or have your agent hook you up. Now it's everyone man for themselves, and a lot of it just comes down to if you happen to be in the right place at the right time, which it always has been, or if the right person sees your thing. But think about at this moment right now, how many millions of songs are being released in this moment, hundreds of thousands of songs that we probably will never hear. And they could be the next Michael Jackson. They could be the next Stevie Wonder. They could be amazing. But there's just so much saturation, we'll just never hear it, maybe. Yeah. And it's kind of discouraging to try to figure out, how do I make my place, or how do I find my footing in the state of the industry right now, when almost no one really has any substantial footing. I mean, you even see now the collapse of record labels. I mean, there's very few that still exists, and the ones that are successful are already being under attack mostly. And then along with record labels, the entire streaming industry is completely changing. And so it's like the music industry has always been a couple steps behind the actual business side, or the actual, I should say, forward progression of success. But now, with the advancement of social media and technology, we're 10 steps behind probably.
Yeah.
Because now you don't need anyone else. The more that you can do yourself, the better of an advantage you'll be at. Because if you can be a graphic designer, if you can be an audio engineer, if you can be a good musician, a good singer, a good video editor, you have the cameras, you literally can just, fund your entire career yourself, and you don't have to pay anyone else. But it's how much work are you willing to put in on your own career to roll roll the dice or pull the slot machine to maybe get found in the oversaturated market, which, I mean, I see you pushing hard. You're probably one of the hardest, working outwardly, trying to put yourself out there musicians that I know. And like you just said, you work your ass off, and you still probably, I would say you don't deserve or have the amount of followers that would equate to the amount of work you've put in, I should say.
For sure.
And that's too bad. It's discouraging, because it's why am I going to do all this stuff when now I'm in a position I have to do it basically to be successful, to potentially not even get back what I have put into it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I've thought a lot about this.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to really quick, we're on drink 2, so I'm going to get this hot little ASMR pop and pour here for a second. You couldn't fucking hear that. Whatever, it's fine. So more is coming home soon, so I'm gonna see if she can get a Red Bull for me at the deli. If not, I might have to take a coffee, hot some water. That's apparently an Ohio thing, to a Southern Ohio thing for some caffeine. But yeah, man. So the social thing. Let's talk socials and numbers and endorsements for a second. So. Sure. I mean, first and foremost, I endorse Pork Pie Percussion. It's fucking dope to say it. I love them. They're so good. Their drums are so good. I'm not paid to say that. I'm not going to do the whole artist deal thing, just because I don't care to disclose all of that without kind of reaching out to them or anything like that. But I am on their artist roster, which is it's not meant as a flex thing, but there's a reason for this. So if you look up Pork Pie Drums and you search my name, I'll show up with a really old photo that I need to change because I look different and grew up and stuff. But It's really cool, and I reached out to some companies, right? And one of the years was Sam when we did that tour, and it was a week, right? But that was a full week of events, and we spoke at a handful of schools, There's something in Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, and there's like at least one event per day, you know, and there's like very tangible numbers that were engaging with me at like a very high level, right? Like in a masterclass, doing a Q&A, listening to music in the room, right? Not just like, hey, there's this person on the internet. And I reached out to a handful of companies. They were pretty large, known. Like I'm a drummer, by the way. I feel like I haven't said that on the podcast. I play drums. I'm not like a pianist that endorsed a drum company. That'd be weird. But anyways, so I play drums, and I reached out to some big companies regarding support. Like, and not even being like, hey, can I be an artist on the roster per se, but like literally being like, hey, I would love to, but if not to, like I'm doing this week of events, I would love for you guys to support me, and I can like, you know, get some swag to hand out or whatever else, and all these things. And like the immediate response from a lot of them, there's one like giant company that's like my dream to like support them because it's already what I play and I love them. And they got back to me and they're like, hey, we love everything that you're doing, and it's not a matter of quality or anything like that. We just want to see bigger numbers. And like I totally get that, but it's almost in this weird time too where like people used to get signed that were up and coming, you know, and it used to be kind of like a showing of faith. And it's like, if you also support me and you share my shit, and it's not meant as ego, and probably I feel it more now than I did then, especially at the quality, like literally just like actual sound quality and video quality that I'm now putting up, is more warranted now. But even back then, like if my shit got some traction or share or support from that company, I would be in a significantly different spot now than I was then. But now it's like you said, like it's kind of like they're chasing whoever's already bigger. And something that I saw once that like fucking made me freak out, honestly, was this dude was doing a Q&A. He has like a drum Instagram, right? All of his videos are like drums. That's what he does. He plays drums, whatever. And someone did a Q&A and they're like, how any tips for becoming a professional drummer? He's like, I don't know. I gave that up a long time ago. He has like 20K, now probably like 25 on Instagram. And he is endorsed by Sabian. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because he's not doing drums full time. He just has this Instagram with like 25,000 followers. And then I looked up the stuff on his artist bio for the favorite record that he's played on, and I like fucking could not find it for the life of me. And I tried really hard. And then I looked up his name, and he's like some like giant dude from some company that like does all these giant meetings, because he posted something in his store, and he was at some giant like outdoor fucking like apparel and gear, like what's that convocation fucking they host him in like expos or whatever, you know what I'm trying to say, right?
NAM.
Yeah, it was like that, but of like outdoor companies or whatever else. And I was so stunned because first off, it looks really shitty of the company, and I like thought about reaching out to them, and I should have, honestly, but I don't want to like bring bad upon that guy. But like you're basing it on this arbitrary fucking number. You're not even gonna like check his engagements or likes or anything like that. And then also like they're already doing their thing, and they're not actively pursuing it. That's the part that bothered me, was like I'm actively pursuing this, and I have tangible events with tangible real fucking human beings with real colleges signing me real checks to do this thing. But because I didn't have this like number, and when you fill out these artist endorsement forms now, there's a whole section that's social media following. It's asking you not only like what records you've played on, who you've worked with, how many students you teach if you're a teacher, then it's like what percentage teaching versus performing, and then it's like how many subscribers on YouTube, do you have a YouTube channel, how many subscribers on or how many followers on Instagram, what's your Instagram handle, how many followers on Facebook, like, because it's a thing of traction. But the part that's interesting is like hearing that email from the company was such a weird moment. It was like, you know, it made me feel good, I guess, in the sense of like, yeah, like I'm at the level that they want for me to be an artist of this name, which is sick as fuck. But then it's like they want numbers, and I was just like, fuck. Like that's when I felt really helpless, because I was like, if you guys helped me, this could be a thing, you know. But that's not the state of what they're doing, which was like such a weird feeling, you know.
Yeah, I don't. I guess that's what I've been trying to think about, because it's you can put in all the work that you want, and you can have one of the best products that you could personally put out, right? But it still doesn't necessarily matter unless someone else is willing to take a chance, or you go viral, or you go on TikTok and you make like a 7-second video that for whatever reason just hits the algorithm perfectly. And and nothing against those people. Mm-hmm. Go for it. Like all the power to you. Like I guess I should preface this too. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to complain or hurt on anyone that's successful, because it takes a lot of work. And I recognize how much work it takes to keep up with all that. And as much as I say that maybe I want to be, like, I would like to have recognition, I don't know if I, as a person, would be capable of handling, like, 30,000 followers or something like that, because I'm not one who really likes social media. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
like social media to, see other people's stuff or to just communicate what's going on, but I much rather keep my stuff to myself. And that's a whole nother thing too, because it takes a certain person to be able to be capable to be in that light. And so it takes one thing to get there, and then another to actually be able to be functional within that spectrum.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
changed too now, even too. Like, too now, even too. Whatever. Fucking, you know the sense I was trying to say. That's changed too now. Like, if you look at, like, so I read the Anthony Kiedis Scar Tissue book, right? He's the lead singer for Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, they were big in like what would you say, it was like late 90s, I guess, early 2000s was like their big kind of like big time of stuff. The way it
Yeah.
went for them was like they played all these shitty shows, they got bigger, whatever, they gained a little bit of traction, then they like had to fight to get a meeting with a label. They got signed to a label. Obviously they didn't have like numbers to be like, hey, pay us. But they had something, the label was like, cool, we think we can do something with this, which is different than being like, oh, you fucking already have something, let's like make it really easy for me to just keep fucking taking money from whoever, like it was different. And then if you look at the process, which is the point of mentioning this for your sake, saying like I like to keep things to myself, like the output that was acceptable before and would even like get you that growth, I think a part of it is because of the support from companies and labels, of like sharing and pushing your shit, because you're literally the product that's bringing them money. They should support that and try to grow you,
Yeah.
because that grows them. But also like you'd put out a record like every couple of years, and then people would listen to your record for the longest time, and then you put out a new one, and like there's so many factors in it. First off, the slow pace that stuff moved at compared to now. People won't even watch a full fucking minute video on Instagram. Like I know this
no way.
tracking numbers, but I also know this as someone who's like, sometimes I'm like, fuck it, like we get it, your pocket's deep as fuck, like I don't care anymore, like which
Yeah.
is like an issue, and I try to work on it best I can, but it's just like where we are now as people, and there's so many factors with it. But like the
Well,
pace,
it's the oversaturation.
Yeah.
Again, it comes to there's just so much stuff out there. You just don't have the time to spend a minute on listening to someone play drums for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you used to be able to put out a record that often, and I think the interesting part is like that artistic side. And I used to think, well, also I want to read the chat in a second, but like I used to think that it was like bullshit, like I would see these people give masterclasses and be like, you got to take care of the music, and I'm like, you're fucking like 75 years old and like signed to all these labels, and you fucking toured
Yeah.
all of the world, like fucking yeah, of course you can take care of the music, but like I need to fucking not suck at drums right now and like get my shit together. And also, how do I get more than 2 people to a gig, like. But now thinking on it, like it makes so much sense. Again, I think there's a lot of caveats for that, but to take care of the music and take care of yourself, which this whole giant like social media reprieve basically, like, I mean, man, Sam, you listen to the music and the record and stuff like that. To me, it feels like it feels very much honest music, which is like what I'm aiming for. It feels like me. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to stroke myself or do anything. Even when we went on tour, man, like that's the least amount of drumming I've ever done at a show. You know how many fucking choruses where it was just you and Josh playing, and I was like, that doesn't need drums right now. Fuck it, I'm just gonna sit here and have my drink. Like straight up sitting on the stage having a drink, listening to you guys play, because I was like, this doesn't need me, so I'm not gonna like insert myself to this and make it worse. Like, and finding that blend of like artistic wholeness. I guess it sounds like, I hate saying it because it sounds so cliche and dumb, but like I think it's really valid. And there's this video cycle or series from some dude who's like really smart with like letters behind his name or whatever. That's a PhD remark in case anyone missed that joke, but about what he calls type C, which is creative personalities, about like the line of procrastination and needing to be pushed, and like the push that record labels would give, but then like you'd be able to like fuck off for all this time and like do whatever you want, and then come back and then like do another record, and like hitting deadlines, but also having that freedom to be. But like this social media pace, and you mentioned it with like the stuff that I do, when I was really trying to push and grow Instagram, man, I had to follow and comment on all this shit and be active in all these communities, and then post twice a day. My YouTube channel is like growing because I post once a week, which already feels like slacking, because after like the second or third day, that shit, like the numbers just peak and drop. So if you want to grow and you need to keep that traction, like the pace you got to push it out at is fucking insane, man. Like, and it brings into like the whole quality versus quantity thing, and is like a whole another issue. But okay, let's pause for a second because I want to catch up on chat. Again, guys, we're streaming this, so if you want to be a person making remarks on this podcast sometime, I will put it in the description or whatever the fuck podcasts do. It's just twitch.tv/DealMasterMusic. All right. It's weird because really no one nowadays wants to help others or give a chance to someone. Let's see. I think the roles/goals of endorsers has changed. Of the endorsee has changed, which is a huge factor in all this. What do you think the role of the endorsee is? Is that the endorsee is the company, right? The endorser is the person. I mean, I think the general goal is still the same, though, right? Like, if you're a company, you want to make money from whoever's supporting your thing. You're looking to like sell shit and move things. I think. On Twitch, people didn't give me the time of day before. When I was 100-ish followers, I'm lucky because I grew fast. But now they talk and respond and reach out. Yeah, man. I've been seeing your channel grow. By the way, I'm not saying names because I don't know the podcast thing. I don't want to have to ask everyone in chat's consent all the time because that'd be annoying. My point is only seem to recognize numbers and reputation, not their quality/character/ambition. Absolutely, man. And your stream, for context, this person's stream has grown because they stream like every fucking day. They have a schedule. They pursue that shit. They sweat it out. They have days off that they schedule to fucking hang out in other people's communities to be like an active member. Like, that shit's no joke to make that happen, you know? And that's like a fucking whole ass thing.
Yeah, no, that takes a lot of time. I have nothing but respect.
Let's see, 100%. There's a reason for that. That's where I was headed with my comment. This is another rabbit hole, but endorsement nowadays very much seem like purely a marketing strategy, which is different than I think it used to be. Yeah, the endorsee be the company. Good. I'm making sure I'm not fucking that up. When you start adding the double E, that's where it starts getting like above Dylan's language pay grade. English is already hard enough for me. Yeah, I mean, I feel like before companies would kind of help push people to push their thing, if that makes sense. And now I feel like companies grab onto people to grab onto their thing. Can we talk really quick about what a brand ambassador is and how fucking broken that shit is? Because that shit is gross as hell. How many people have gotten fucking hit up on Instagram and they're like, hey, would you like to be a brand ambassador? You get 15% off the store. And then when you promote it, if people use your link, you get like 10% of whatever they buy. It's like, wait, so I get a discount to buy your fucking shit, to post your shit for free? And then you look at people who do that and they have like 100 followers and this company's got like 5 to 10K. And it's like, the click-through. This also drives me nuts. Just to go on a social media fucking rampage right now. Bro, Ninja has like how many bajillion... Hang on. Fucking, I'm looking this shit up. We all know Ninja, right? The dude who like changed esports forever and like finally broke that threshold that we all knew esports was going to take to become gigantic. Dude has 14.8 million followers. He's played with like super famous people. Drake was on his stream once. Like, he's a known dude, right? He has a clothing company. Fuck, I can't remember what it was. I'm going to try to find it really quick. Bear with me. Go to the internet. Anyone have any good jokes in the meantime? Sam, you got a good joke?
My life? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Nah, my life's pretty decent. I can't complain. But while you're looking that up, I guess just an interesting point for me personally was another thing was like, do I want to dedicate my life to being Sam the product or Sam the person? And it gets really confusing sometimes being in the music industry now, because you a lot of times have to push away the person side and your person can very easily become the product. And that's very dangerous. And that's a scary situation that I don't really ever want to find myself in. But it's almost like a sacrifice you have to make now if you are willing to go the way and pursue this thing full time like that. Because a lot of times you're gonna have to share everything, and your life and you as a person is going to be what everyone is going to see, and that's what they're gonna sell. Like, I don't know. I keep bringing up TikTok, but I guess it's because it's like the newest thing. It's amazing that these kids are making all this money and being successful, but like Addison Rae, imagine her life now. She's been famous since she was like 18, right? I mean, she got big on TikTok when she was 17, 18 or whatever, and now probably for the rest of her life, like, her life is going to be open business to everybody. Her life is now everyone else's life. Her life is the product that she's selling to everybody. And that's a pretty big sacrifice. I mean, that's even before you see all like the Disney kids, you know, they were super successful and then they got older and then things just went down south for them. And that was before the golden age of social media and everything. So I'm slightly concerned for the sake of all these other kids now that are getting huge at the age of 16, 17, and now their lives are in the hands of the public. So
yeah, man. I mean, even like, again, bringing it back to like the Chili Peppers thing, because it's just like something that, you know, like it he had like he was like on a drug, um, like Anthony Kiedis had a lot of problems with, I think it was heroin. It was like a very serious actual fucking drug with like needles and shit and like really bad. He has a person that comes to his house now every day to do stuff and like give him IVs and make sure he's all good and shit. But like he wouldn't have had the freedom to do that now. And then you see these people with like all these crippling mental issues and shit because you get 5 bajillion comments a day from your 5 bajillion followers. And like, sure, you get all this nice shit and your house is dope and like all this, but like there's no kind of like break between you and like the thing that you are promoting or whatever else. And like I think that that's super gross, you know. And like granted, I unfollowed a bunch of musicians who posted shit that I didn't care about because it wasn't their music, but so did I with musicians that posted their music. It just wasn't what I wanted to see anyways. But like, you know, there definitely be times where I'd get bummed, or like there's like a photographer that I follow, right? I think his photography's dope, but sometimes his stories get kind of personal, and like, no offense, but I don't give a shit because like I care about his product, which is what his timeline is, but then his stories on Instagram vary. And like I find myself getting upset because like, no offense to him, but I don't care about him as a person, like, which sounds mean to say, but that's not what I mean. Like I just like, I don't care to hear about his fancy dinner with a bunch of fucking models, or like some of that's on brand, but then there's some stuff that he does where I'm like, dude, I don't give a shit. Like I just want to see your photos and stuff that's like really artistic and beautiful. And when you differ from that, like it impacts what you like, your following and your click through and shit like that too, which is like a whole nother thing. Holy shit. You want to read this comment, man? I'm still trying to find the ninja thing. I can't.
Yeah. 15 years ago, you look at the list of endorsers for their drum companies, and it's a list of 20 to 30 people max. Now some companies literally have hundreds of endorsers. Yeah. And this isn't one of those young people don't understand how big a deal it used to be BS. I'm saying even the companies were much pickier, and because it felt like they really wanted to help the people endorsing them. Yeah, because back then, your product or your company that you were endorsing was the people that you were endorsing, I should say, were essentially an extension of your brand. So they were a huge representation of your brand. So it would be ill upon you to endorse someone that was going to represent you negatively. And so they really cared about it. And not to mention, because a lot of those brands were using those artists in order so that they could grow their brand and become bigger. Like Federa is a custom bass company. They are literally only as famous as they are today because Victor Wooten plays their basses. And again, I'm not saying, I mean, those basses are amazing basses. They're super high quality, and irregardless of who was endorsing them, but it sure as hell helped to have Victor Wooten being the person that was playing a Federa. And because of that, that company got huge. And now they are like the biggest, probably custom bass company of boutique basses, I would say. And that was largely because of the people that they had selected to endorse them. But now with social media, it's almost like you're just, like you said, splitting time and energy, right? Because it's like, well, if I can just get 100 people, and then they can all maybe get me about, I don't know, a couple thousand views of my product a day, overall, it's going to come back to me and it won't really matter that much. So it'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay, going back to the Ninja thing. So I found his merch thing, I think. Let me see who it's following. Yeah, it's only following Ninja and his wife, so I'm assuming that's it. Fuck, it's following... So Ninja has 14.8. His clothing company has 1.2. So for quick context of that, I mean, I'm not good at fractions, and my math days are long since past me. But that's not like, okay, if 1 out of 14 people click through your shit, right? Let's round up to like 1 out of 15 because that's a little bit more doable. What's 15 divided into? 300? So if you do 1 out of 15 for 300, that's like 30 people out of 300, I think, right?
Yeah, give or take.
So you have 300 followers. 30 people are willing to even follow the fucking other thing that you launched. Now, how many people of that are going to click through to your link, to click through to something else, to watch something, to hope to get brands on? Like, it's insane. When you look at the drop-off, this is like a whole nother fucking podcast I wanted to do about socials, but like, I guess it's related to all of this anyways. Again, I don't really give a shit. We're just going wherever we go. But like, the click-through and the drop-off is insane. It's just like, it feels like this kind of ridiculous monster, you know? And this is getting way more into like the business side of things, which is now kind of what like keeps me up at night now that I feel like I'm making honest music and like feel like I'm kind of settling into myself more than ever before, is trying to figure that shit out. But like it just gets really nuts when you look at what companies are doing with it. And like Vic Firth and Zildjian became the same company, right? So if you get turned down from one, you're definitely not going to get the other. Now, Zildjian just did this series called Zildjian Live, which is like the same band that was on Vic Firth Live, and then they have the same band that's like really popular, playing with all these different drummers who don't play with that band, who are kind of like pigeonholed into this style. And like it can be cool, but it's also like very, I don't know, you see it and it's this small list of people. And I guess part of what is, well, it's just so interesting. And some of the artists that they have, like some of these drummers, are people that get really, really big on socials. Like there's someone, right, JD Beck, the drummer, right? We've all like seen him. He plays like really fucking fast and plays with Dami. And like,
sick.
Yeah, dude. The dude can groove for sure and like can actually play like super music stuff. But also there's a lot of shit that's like really fucking flashy and fast. And like, that's cool, and there's nothing against that, you know? But that's like the stuff that he posts on Instagram. And then people will be like, bro, you're all chops and all this shit. And he'll like, his response is like, I don't think you've heard my music ever. Like, you've never heard me play with a band. You've just heard like me shredding with JD on Instagram for like 60 seconds. And that's the shit that gets all these views and all this traction. And now he endorses all these companies. He's been hanging out with like these big drum cats for the longest, you know? And there's nothing that's, I'm not saying he's like not worthy of it, because he like 110% is. It's just that like, it's a different world now that we live in, where he's getting huge and he's doing his thing rooted in socials, you know, not rooted in like, he's not like, he has a social following. And then I think the last thing that I saw was like pre-Rona, obviously, he was on tour opening up for Chan, him and Dami. And like now they're trying to put out a record and all this shit. And like, that's super sick. I think Hannibal Buress is going to be on it somehow. And like Eric Andre, I'm so curious to see that. But it starts as a social thing and then goes to other stuff. And like, and the part that gives me, I guess, a little bit of hope is like, they're not like, sure, they're active on socials and everything, but they're following what they want and they're doing what they want. You know, you can kind of get around that, having to like, I think if you grind too hard and try so much to like, I'm going to comment and post and like all this, whatever, you know, you can get traction. But how many Instagram accounts have we seen that have 50K or under, where they stay there and they work their fucking ass off for that 50K or less, but they don't have that thing that sparks them to that next level of like, okay, this is actually sizable, because now on Instagram, anything less than 10K is like casual as fuck, and or people are going to think you're like some creepy internet stalker, like bot account, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we've been relatively negative, I guess, in a more positive, more positive note. I do purpose, think that they're, no, I mean, it's to kind of discuss the outlets of it, but I guess a good positive thing to come out of it is that you look at, like you said, JD Beck, or even look at Thundercat. Like, in what world would Thundercat realistically have become as famous as he is now? Like, yeah, of course he's weird and he's unique, but he's a bass player. Like, he's a weird bass player that for some reason just like because he was with Mac, and then Ariana Grande was about him, and that sure helped his career a lot. But still, like, now this dude is, I mean, I can go up to normal people, and by normal people I mean not musicians, and ask them, do you know who Thundercat is? And they say, yeah. And I'm just blown away by that. Like, how?
Bro, I hear him in stores, bro. Like, I was in Soho shopping and this dude, with more.
Like, he just, and I say recently, but it probably maybe is a couple of years now, but he was, for the longest time, for the majority of his career as he was getting famous, he was not active on socials. I mean, he had a Insta that he literally just never posted on. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you can do it, I guess. I mean, and he's just someone who's very genuine and true to himself. So I guess through all of it, it's really just, I think the biggest part of this conversation, if we're trying to give advice to somebody, for me personally, it would be just stick to what's true to you and don't push yourself beyond beyond who you are, I guess, you know? Like,
yeah, absolutely, man. Because I think that's the biggest part too. And again, to tie this in like an hour later to the Facebook post, is like, I was tired of doing shit that I didn't give a fuck about, you know, and then like feeling bad if I wasn't. Like, I felt bad that I wasn't doing music all the time, or like, you know, living that life. And it's like, dude, I fucking lived that life real hard. I've been almost homeless. I've been homeless. I've like gone, and this isn't trying to be an ass, but like, I've literally, all that cliche musician shit that you want to talk about, 110% definitely went through that, and not just talking like a week, you know, like some friends were like, bro, I've always wanted to like struggle and shit. Like I admire it. Bro, ain't shit fucking fun about this. My stomach hurts. I was in the hospital earlier. Like, fuck that shit. That ain't worth it. Like, you know, but they feel some type of way or whatever because it's like this valid thing. It's dumb as hell. And like now pursuing stuff online and stuff, like even with streaming less or with doing YouTube videos and not being super active on all these YouTube like theory videos that I don't really care that much about, I've distance myself from that feeling of obligation because I just don't give a shit. Like I don't care. I'm going to be like unapologetically myself. My music's going to be unapologetically me. Dude, you remember master classes, right? And even before that, the other 2 tours, like people would be like, oh, isn't that like a lot of shit to do? And my response would be like, yeah, there's like a way to do it and be healthy and shit. I don't fucking know that way. I don't, for the life of me, I don't, you know, but I would just answer that because that's what I felt like I had to say. But now it's like, I mean, fuck it. The school's going to think of me what they think of me anyways. I have enough testimonials to book shit. I don't need more of them. Like, I'm going to be honest, where it's like, yeah, I don't sleep well. I don't get up in the morning like when I want to. And when I do, it like hurts and all this shit because like, this is something that consumes my life and that I want so fucking hard to make it my future. But I also don't want to do this other shit. And that's not to say like I'm not working, you know, because I think there's a fine line with that. It's not like I'm not trying to do music or anything. Like I'm just not going to feel bad if I don't go out to a show this week or if I don't tune into a live concert from someone that's like some big prestigious name. Like I've stopped giving a fuck about that. But for the longest felt like that would make me lesser of a musician and like therefore lesser of a person. It was so dumb, man. So dumb.
No, totally. I mean, I think that before in music school, one of the professors, he would say, you know, if you are like going out to the city and going to jam sessions and stuff, you know, those are the cats who are going to gig. And that he's like, in my experience, the people who are in school or in the institutions that don't go out to jam sessions or stuff, once they graduate, I just never see them play music again. And when I heard him say that, I was slightly offended at the time because I thought, you know, wow, you think very little of, I mean, I guess it was my own ego of me because I had no interest in going out and doing those things. But then, you know, there's 2 sides to it because no, he's right, because the people who are making an effort to go out to the city and go to the jams and do that stuff are the people that actually care about that stuff and really want to succeed and be on the scene and do that. So no, he's right. And me, I don't really care about that much. Like I don't really care much about going to the jams and doing that. And it was far more beneficial to my own career, I guess, and my own progression when I realized that that's not true to me, and that's okay. I think that's the important part. Is it's okay.
Yeah, no, you know? Absolutely, man.
And that's something that they don't really teach you in music school a lot, is to say like, and granted, it's their job, but I also think that musical institutions are a little behind in terms of preparing people. So under-contextualized.
Holy fuck. There's no context to fucking anything ever. I'll say it.
Yeah.
Shamelessly. We'll fucking die on that hill because I fucking know I'm right. Because when I ask colleges and students and I'm like, how many of you guys have talked about music business shit? And no one's fucking hand goes up. And then I'm like, well, how many of you had a professor say, oh, take a business class? And their hand goes up. What a fucking pathetic cop-out that shit is. For like, no business class is going to talk... Man, it's fucked up. There's no context for things to make things like this be like, hey, it's okay, and not wanting to pursue that. Because I think that's why I developed so much fucking guilt for things, man, is because like you were told that that's the thing, man. And it's like the first gig that those dudes get. And it's fucking, I guess I'm a little bit jaded on some of these things because I'm like kind of angry at myself, to be honest, for letting this go for so long. But like, the first call that a lot of those dudes get is to be in the fucking house band. They're like, oh, you're here every fucking week anyways. Why don't you do the house band thing? It's like, well, first off, why are they here every week? Why is every other musician free to go to that jam session that day? And then secondly, like, what are you trying to gain from that? Are you trying to, like, for me, when I go out to jams, like, I don't want to fucking play a standard. I don't give a shit about that. But if someone sounds good on a standard or has this tone that I want, it's like, hey, you want to come over for a session? It sounds creepy, like I'm some like recruiter or whatever, but I'm like, I don't want to play this shit. Like I could give a fuck about all the things you are and playing it well. Like I'm not interested in that. Not bashing that song or like doing that. It's just like, that's not my thing. But what I want to do is talk to someone and be like, hey, do you want to come over and play my stuff? Because that's what I'm doing. And like I also felt really bad about this until I talked with like a pretty known violinist about it to get his feedback on it. He's like, dude, if you just want to fucking play sessions to get your own music, go to a session, find who you think fucking sounds good. Don't. It's like the first session I go to, I don't fucking play. I go to see what the vibe is like. If it sucks, I fucking leave. He's like, I don't give a shit. And then if I go back and it's cool, or I see something that I like, I hit him up. And like the point of it is he was very much like, I am going because I want to get something from it. And I'm focused on what I want to get from it. And like unapologetically being like, this is what I want. this is what I'm here for, versus like this is what I think I should do because this, without the other, which is like what I spent so much time doing, man. And it was so awful. Like, I'm so bummed that I spent all that energy and time doing shit that was like not what I wanted, you know? Like, there's one session I went to every Sunday night in the city. I didn't give a fuck that it was at midnight because I loved the music, I loved the people, I loved hanging out with the band. A friend brought me there because he thought I would like the music, and I never regretted going to that session ever. Even when it was like not the best session ever, like afterwards and some weird cats showed up or whatever, I was still glad I went because like I knew the first part was really worth it. But then there's so many that I went to and was like, man, the amount of times that I felt bad staying home and like watching a movie or like doing something that I enjoyed to like recover myself because it wasn't what I thought I should be doing. Oof.
I mean, there's a fine line between pushing yourself to do something that is good for you that you don't want to do, and then like pushing yourself to do something that you know you don't want to do, and and like pushing your. I guess I should say the difference is pushing yourself to do it just because you can say you did it, rather than doing it because you know it's going to be good for you. You know, and I feel like that's a lot of my experience within music school, or what a lot of it is. And again, I've got a lot of great things from music school, but there's also a lot of, I think, bad things about music school that are not unfixable, but I have my doubts as to whether they will be fixed in the near future. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of it was, I'm like, push yourself to do something that you don't want to do, even though you know like you're not going to get a lot out of it, but just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's just weird because it's like I'm all about doing things that you're uncomfortable about to like push forward and progress. But then there's the other weird part of like doing things that you don't want to do that you know even if you do it, you're still not going to like want to do it or be happy that you did it.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing, you know?
Yeah, but then there's that line too of like you do that and then you're like, oh fuck, this is kind of dope or kind of what I want. Like I think there's that, it's really hard to find too. And I think, because I had the same conversation, first off, I'm not a jaded piece of shit that just hates music school. I think there's a lot of good there. I also think there's a lot of bad. So like just for context, because I know I feel like this took like more of a negative tone. Maybe it's because I'm tired and like I'm working at a job where like everything's fucking on fire and I spent all day repairing like a sinking company and like canceling memberships. It was rough. So I'm sorry if some of the jade's coming out. I think there's a lot of good that happens at music school, but there's also a lot of bullshit. And one of the things, and this is the tie between it, is when I talk about some of the experiences I went through, I think I learned a lot from it because I went through all the bullshit. I realized it was broken because I went through it. But that being said, it takes like, and this isn't meant as ego, but it takes like a pretty fucking strong individual to go through the bullshit and realize it's bullshit and then fucking later bullshit it within yourself. Like that's a pain in the ass. And then when you look at, my big thing is like when you look at the cost of music schools, thank you so much, best fiance ever, I got a Red Bull. When you
what up, more?
It's Sam. Everybody, this is more. Unbullshit the bullshit. Yeah, I'm gonna make that a t-shirt.
Unbullshit the bullshit. Yeah.
Not yet. Yeah.
I thought it'd be like a fun.
Okay. So when you like, it takes a rare, like not rare, I'm not trying to like fucking ego myself, right? But like a lot of us, I think, went through some fucked up shit and then we're like, oh, that was fucked up. And there's like I think there's a way to do it better where there's more context and you don't have to go through so much. Nonetheless, when you look at the fucking price tag of music school, just the general concept of college, I'm so sorry for this rant, but we're here now. Like, you're paying for a service. You're the fucking customer, right? Like that's like literally what it is. And then when you go through all of that and then it's like, oh, but aren't you glad you learned all that from school? I was like, yeah, but when you look at fucking, it's basically like, feels like Normandy. When you look at everyone that fucking went to music school and dropped out or fucking found a different job or is like really fucking depressed now, you like turn down the beach and you're like, damn, that's not great. And you're like, how much do we all pay to just get fucked up? Like, and that maybe that's offensive to World War II vets, but like, I think it's a good analogy because I've seen some like really bad turns from music school stuff that like hurts to see. And like, trying to talk at schools about these things is because like I think there's a line with that too where it's like, okay, we're going to instill all these things that are first off dated. If the whole industry is dated, a fucking college with a bunch of old white dudes creating the curriculum
very dated
is not going to fucking have the most like, who's talked about how to make an Instagram clip or like a YouTube thumbnail or like record in your room so you can get an internet following so you can sell records? Fucking nobody. But everyone talks about going to the goddamn jam session to play for $5, a shitty meal that's undercooked, some raw chicken and like a beer and a hug and some pocket lint in the tip jar. Like, how fucking whack. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm going to be done ranting and just let Sam talk for a second. But like, holy fuck, there's some shit that's real busted and some guilt that's instilled that's real fucked up. and we should make an effort to undo that. So all of my jade and like fight the man posts and YouTube isn't because I'm some toxic negative person, but like, holy shit, is it broken and collecting a fuckload of money and screwing over countless lives. Also, last thing, we'll do a whole nother college tangent video. Not every goddamn college needs a fucking music department. The fact that there's so many is broken. And if you look at the staff and the qualification of them, fucking broken. Sam, we worked together at some schools and some colleges, right? We heard some things. Now,
yeah, we did.
I've heard some things that are very fucking questionable.
Yeah, we did.
And I'm wondering what the price tag behind that was. And like, it's not bashing, but when you look at, fuck it, we're here. This is going to be like 30 seconds. I promise I'm going to keep this short. I went to a school. Sam, we went to the school together. There's someone at that program that found that gig because they couldn't make it in Chicago as a musician. And I had a conversation with someone who's now a dean of students talking about this person. And I was like, well, why are they here teaching at a school? Because they wanted a steady gig? Does that make them a qualified teacher? Fuck no, it doesn't. And then what are you teaching at that point if you didn't have the skill set to make it? Now you're teaching other people who want to make it. And then you look at the admission bar because they got to like make black and white numbers to pay their black and white staff, this black and white salary to give them a black and white grade, to give them this black and white piece of paper. Fucking broken. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
All right, let me try to salvage some of that. There's not much in that I disagree with, but let me just try to lighten it a tad. I will start with the fact of that I am very glad that I went to music school, and I'm very glad that I went through the process of getting an undergrad and a master's in jazz to get to the end of it and realize that this is not something I want to do with my life in a full-time fashion. But I would never have gotten to that degree if I didn't go through that amount of schooling. After saying that, I think that I'm purely speaking upon my musical experience within my own school, but then also with various schools that I have worked with. But from the biggest thing that I've realized is that a lot of the professors that teach at music schools, and this is not a hit at them at all, this is just a comment upon the system of how it's founded, but most of the professors that are at music schools are musicians, not teachers. And what I mean by that,
someone get this man a plaque,
is that they're good musicians, they live their life, they've gigged, they know how to play their instrument, and they get their teaching job because it's another gig for them. And by I mean that is that it's like another gig that they have acquired, such as like they're playing, but they are not teachers and they're not the best at actually teaching. But based on how the system works, they want to hire people that are obviously experienced. So yeah, you would look in the pool of musicians, but then they also want people who have, have the paper. So people that have gone through the schooling system, which is already, as we've clarified, broken as it stands. So they're not the best at educating going forward. And so a lot of times within my experience, it's that the teachers are there because it's another gig for them. And it's not that they are there because they are the ones that know how to best prepare you to go forward in the music industry, but it's because they've already proven themselves to be successful in the previous music industry. And I think that is a hard thing because I don't know how to solve that. You'd obviously have to start hiring younger people, but then you're lacking experience. But I think it's hard because the industry is just changing so fast at this point, and we are trying to learn it as it's still changing. And
Absolutely.
So I don't blame the professors. I don't blame the school because it's hard as it is to try to formulate something of that stature.
Yeah.
But it's just with the way that music works and the way that the industry works, it is very difficult to create an institution that can properly prepare you and educate you to succeed within that industry in a present time successfully.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
That's
Dude.
just how it is, you know?
Yeah, no, I think you said things that are really good for people to hear, and this is going to sound like I'm piggybacking, but maybe it's because like first off, and this again isn't meant as ego, it's actually kind of a bad thing and fucked me up a lot, but my mind moves at like a very fast pace, and like I immediately accept all of these things as like truths and things that should be like probably out loud said when I say the things that I say, because if I don't say them, then I just seem like some jaded ass. But like, it is very difficult for sure, because if you look at it, like when I listen to that whole black and white bullshit tangent, I mean, it wasn't bullshit. The black and white part is because, like, that is what it is. You know, you need a certain level of students to pay a certain number of dollars so that you can pay your staff a certain number of dollars. And then these students that needs like a certain black and white percentage of people to graduate with this degree to like, it's very, there's like a whole bunch of shit on the back end that I'm not like trying to discredit in that like whole rant about music schools for sure. Cause that's very much like a whole entire, that's the whole thing. We'll do another podcast on that, but that's why I want friends that like talk about these things and that we can like go down these rabbit holes of music stuff. Because this started as like finding yourself musically and like not feeling guilt for things, and ended kind of with music school stuff. And there's no fucking way that shit was by accident by any means.
Oh no, I think they're deeply tied to one another.
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
people who have gone to music school, I think all of you have had to go through it. I mean, everyone that I've talked to that has gone to music school and gotten out of it, there is a distinct period of unlearning and refinding who you are and not your music school self.
Yeah, which and then it brings into the question, like, is that a thing that should happen or shouldn't, and then how much should that cost? It's a whole other thing. We'll do another, Sam, we should do that with you. But
I'd love to, yeah.
I'm gonna pour a third beverage, guys. We're gonna wrap because Sam like has a life unlike me, so he's got to bounce.
Well, I can still talk for about 20 more minutes if we. I guess I'll say to try to go back to the original thing of this is distancing yourself from the musical community and the positives that come from that. I think for me personally, I'm a person who likes to compare myself to other people a lot, and I think that a lot of musicians are like that because. I think that you have to be, because the only way you can be a musician and improve is by comparing yourself to people that are better than you so you can learn from them.
Sure.
But there is an inherent issue within that because it can be very easy to lose yourself in the comparisons to others.
Yes.
And I think with social media, it presents a 24/7 constant platform that continually shows you people that are better than you all the time.
And then it takes a strong individual again to overcome that as well, like where you can be like, oh, this doesn't hurt, I don't give a fuck, his hands are 8 times faster than mine ever will be, because like, not to get really jaded on it, but like, oh, he can afford to stay at home with like parents and practice, and I'm like not doing that, so I can't spend 8 hours a day on singles. Like, oh fuck. And then you're like, is my whole life a lie? Why is he so much better than me? And it gets so dark. At least for me, like that shit spirals fast as fuck.
Yeah. And I think all of us as individuals have specific limitations and distinct differences just because music is a physical thing. And everybody's body is different, and every human and just their way their mind works and how their body works is different. So
literally, yeah.
Yeah. And so it becomes a losing game a lot of times to like compare yourself to, I don't know, like if I tried to compare myself to Hadrian Farode, you know, he's probably practiced thousands of more hours than I have. But also, I don't think that if I practiced the same amount of time he practiced, that I could ever get to the level that he's at. And I think that's just how it is. And not that I'm trying to cop out and try to like make an excuse for myself, but there are just some people that's how their body is, you know, that's just who they are. Yeah. And there's not much you can do about it. And so like with you, what I said this to you after we finished recording this record, you know, I think that you are a stronger writer than you are a drummer. But the cool thing for me to hear is to hear you playing drums on stuff that isn't your music, but then to hear you playing drums on your music. And it's like two different drummers, because it makes sense. Like I said to you before, when you're playing your music, you are playing the drums that how you see the drums, or how you want to play the drums, I guess is the way I'm trying to say it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a thing that we all should try to focus towards, that I don't think music school promotes as much, but like play to who you are, I guess, and fulfill who you are musically, and don't try to like accomplish something that is just not within your range, I guess or within your spectrum of reality, I guess is more so a proper way of saying it.
Yeah, man. I mean, absolutely. Like, I agree with that so much. First off, I feel way better about my writing than my drumming, because my writing feels like when I put a piece of music in front of somebody, I never question like what's going to happen. I mean, other than some like bullshit of like, oh yeah, there's 5 bars this line, and then the next one has 5 bars, so like B starts at the end of the second line. I'm really sorry, I fucked that up. Like, that's just sloppy like finale work. But other than that, like, I don't feel any question of like sharing that side of myself with people. Like, I feel very good about my writing because it feels like 110 million fucking % like myself and organic. My drumming feels very different, and like I think a big part of school, man, when we were there together, like I was playing shit I didn't give a flying fuck about, man. I had someone be like, oh, you need to play like Philly Joe. And I was like, fuck that. And it's nothing against Philly Joe. He's dope. But I was like, why? I'm going to spend all this time trying to get really good at wearing masks. Fuck that. I want to wear my face and I want to wear that shit shamelessly, you know, and I never spent the time doing that. And I can't imagine, honestly, doing stuff that wasn't for me. Like I played on a friend's like single and it was super fun and I love it and it's great and I hope he does actually finish it soon because I want it out and it's fun and it's like the some 4-4 shit. Of course, the reason I got that is because there's a bar of like 13, 16 and then 14, 16 and like 9, whatever. He's like, hey, can you play pop with also like some Dylan measures? But that like, even though there's like some elements that overlap with what I do, it is very different to be like, okay, like I'm here servicing what you want to do and like that's fine. And there's that weird element that I feel like I've never really gotten because I've never pursued it and my passion for pursuing it is very low, but of like, let me play the way you want me to play, you know? And that's why I feel weird too. Like when we first started playing, man, like I know you tend to be more rhythmic and involved. And I was like, bro, I fucking need half notes, whole notes. This shit is like you play the bass, like literally the bass note. And then I play like eighths on the ride. And then there's like this pretty melody and a fuckload of major 7 chords. And that's like the thing, you know? And like, you do it super well. And I'm not trying to make it sound like you're not yourself because I can tell when it's you fucking playing because you play the notes and I'm like, like it feels like, you know, sweet tea on a porch. But like, I just, you know, that's a very different realm of music. And for me personally, like I can't imagine not doing that. Like the band leader thing, I didn't pick that shit because it's fucking easy. That shit is anything but that. But it feels true to me, you know, like it started at like Northern my like sophomore year because I was like, I don't want to fucking play standards. I don't want to sound like Duke Ellington's big band. I want to play the shit that I'm hearing, which is like taking inspiration from the people first off presently playing, which is not being addressed well because again, that's very hard to do and just doesn't happen. And there's no like establishment being like, oh, we should do this, which makes it even harder. And then also I was like, I want to play the stuff that's like going on with me because that's the only chance I think I'm going to have to play the music that I want to play. And then that turned into like what is now my like full-time musical endeavor is like, you know, my name trio. And it's not meant as like ego. It's just because the band changes sometimes. But like that became my kind of like musical identity of sorts is like that full package of like me playing drums to my stuff. Like I don't think I'm going to do somebody else's music justice. And it's not because I don't think I can sight read or play the drums. It's just like, I don't know, man. Like it's just not my thing. Like I was talking to our friend Ever, right? And Everett's the reason why I ever developed chops ever and like why my life changed forever musically because I checked out a bunch of stuff. There was a time where I pursued that a bunch and then we had a conversation literally right before this and I was like, bro, I'm never going to play drums like you. Like that's just not going to happen because what you're going to do is physically beyond what I'm going to ever be able to do because I'm not going to pursue that because I don't want to. And that doesn't make me any lesser for it or you any lesser for it. That's just like a difference. And for the longest time, I just wanted to be able to play drums like him. And then, I mean, I don't want to say like I hit that because he just keeps growing. But there's one time where someone came up. He's like, bro, I want to sound like you in the practice room. And we were trading fours. And I was like, yeah. I fucking kept up because you thought it was similar to his playing. But like, you know, where it's just like that's not like you brought up the physical, which like goes beyond just like me and him are like shaped differently and stuff. But like we check out different music. We're different people. We practice different amounts. We practice different things. Like I want to practice making super like musical decisions and I want to know what every single person is playing and how that relates to the whole song. And I'm not saying he's not at that level of musicality because he's insanely musical, but he's like pairing that with like he's focused more on like how can I support that as a drummer on this instrument. And I'm thinking like more band versus him focusing more him with the band. And there's nothing wrong with either of those. It's just different, you know. And for the longest, that was another thing I felt guilty about. I was like, oh well, if I can't play as fast or as choppy or whatever, is it as good? And it's like, no, it's not. It's just different, you know. Like I mean, you heard the drum solos on the record that's coming out, man. Like that wasn't by any means like the cleanest, most insane shit ever, but I think there was like a theme throughout it. There was like something, and I was talking to Max, and I was like, "Bro, I fucking hate it." He's like, "Really? I kind of dig it." He's like, "It like there's like a, it's like has a whole like trajectory, and it's like a thing, like it feels cohesive." And I was like, "But it like wavers a little bit." He's like, "Fucking who cares?" And I was like, "I guess," but now I'm scared. Like, there's still always that like doubt in my mind. Okay. I think we should do, I mean, I know we've had some stuff with chat, but I want to kind of officially, I guess, open it up if there's any questions or remarks or thoughts and things for kind of the end wrap part of it. And in the meantime, while that happens and any of that stuff comes through, Sam, thanks again so much for being here. What's your social handle? I mean, unless you don't want to, I guess after this conversation, I'm not sure. But
I mean, don't expect a lot on it. But I think Instagram is the thing I'm most active on. I'm pretty sure it's at Sam Dando Music at this point. Yeah, it is. I had something I wanted to say to wrap this up. It was something to do with what you had just mentioned with Everett.
Sorry, I just ramble like a bunch.
No. I remember. So, along with the physicality, it's how you were saying you and Everett are just different. But I found with me that my playing changes significantly based upon the period that I am in my life and who I am as a person at that point in time in life. Mm-hmm. And I know people talk about that, and I'm more of a abstract thinker in that regard. So some people might not, be as sold on it, but I think it's very true. I think that a lot of how we play musically is reflective of the life we're living and who we are at that point in time.
Yeah.
And I've seen and I've heard my playing change drastically. And I could listen to Sam playing 3 years ago and be like, oh, I know who that Sam was, or I know what he was going through at that time. And I can listen to myself now and be like, oh, my playing sounds and reflects how I feel and what I think and who I am as a person. Mm-hmm. And I think to tie it all up in terms of like distancing yourself from the community and all that, I think that the community is great. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the community.
Absolutely.
I definitely wouldn't still be playing music if it wasn't for the community that I've built and the ones that I've been a part of.
Yeah.
But I think that it's really important to be reflective and think about who you are as a person. Think about what you have to offer musically and what you can bring to the community in that regards, and be true to that. Because it's hard to be true to that, because a lot of times what you have to offer and who you are might not be what other people want, or might not be what other people are looking for at that time. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to accept, that kind of rejection. But it's better in the long run, because you're going to find the people who want you, or that want to play with you, not play with what you're playing, but play with you as a person, because they like who you are and they like what you're playing because of who you are. Mm-hmm. And so I think in all, just be true to who you are, be true to what you play and how you play, and be realistic with what you bring to the community and ride with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I think that's such a good way to kind of like wrap things, man. Thanks for being here, by the way, again, and also being like that kind of like voice that I just kind of treat as like implicit, which doesn't come across, and then it makes things get like really dark. I super appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem.
It's been super great talking about these things. I guess we're going to wrap the stream. I want to say thanks again to everyone that's like here throughout it. This is a second attempt. Well, I don't want to say attempt because that makes it sound like I failed the first time. A second, we're doing a podcast again because the first one ended, and this is the next iteration of it. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it a whole bunch. It means a bunch. You can check out more stuff on socials, check out stuff with Sam. We're going to be doing things regularly, changing up who's on, what we're talking about. It kind of comes down to, this literally happened because of a post today. I have all sorts of thoughts all the time, and I would love for other people to share them. Is there anything, too, that, I guess those were already kind of closing thoughts, but anything that we didn't address or that might have, like, gotten interrupted by me, like, low-key raging because of, like, a very exhausting day? Because I want to make sure you like share all the stuff that you wanna share. And if not, too, we can always do like a double down of it. Like I definitely want to do another one, probably with you, honestly, about colleges, because that's a whole other thing.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely. I'm more than happy to do this again. Talk about some other stuff. A platform knows one.
Yeah, or anything from any people hanging out here. You want to share stuff. Thanks again for that follow earlier. Appreciate you guys in chat being here too. We probably won't end stream right now. I'll probably take a break and fuck it. Maybe we'll stream Call of Duty. I don't know. We'll see. But if there's any final things, otherwise we're gonna wrap. I'll probably cut out a big chunk of this in the edit of the podcast, anyways. But from Sam or otherwise,
I guess the only other thing that I thought about was
or if you don't have to go, sorry, we can keep going too. I don't give a shit. If you want to just stay, then let's fucking make a 4-hour Joe Rogan podcast.
We should do that definitely one day. Not today, but the other thing that I was thinking of saying that was kind of related to what I was saying before was that um, just because like the way you learn or the way that you go about expressing yourself, if it's just because it's not like the way that you've been taught or that people say you should, doesn't mean that it's not good. Because for myself, for an example, is I never really liked transcribing, and I was, unlike Dylan, I've never been good at like composing music. I've always had
Listen.
musical ideas, but I'm not good at like writing stuff out. I always hated that. And through production for myself, it's always been something I love. I'm a huge hip hop head. I love Jay Dilla. I love D'Angelo. I love just, I mean, all those people are my biggest influences.
Yes.
And so I had always wanted to produce, and especially came time towards the end of college, I was really, really wanted to do it. And so with this time, I started doing it a lot. And it's just been amazing for me because being that I'm not a composer or I'm not in the traditional sense where I write stuff out, but
Sure.
now I have a platform where I can literally compose my own music, make the stuff that I really love and really want to make. And through that, I have composed songs. I have, because I had musical ideas and I just didn't have a way to, express it or create it. And now I figured out the platform that I'm able to do that on. And it's been incredible. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is just because the way that you maybe are able to do things, even though it's not the conventional way, doesn't mean that it's not the correct way for you to go about expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's how it is for me. I now I feel like I can be who I am and express myself in ways that I didn't even know I had inside of me. And that was because I'm doing it in a way that's not what everyone else was doing, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, man. It's funny how things turn out, and I know, seeing some stuff in the chat regarding, we'll get to that question too, where Sam can just talk about Sam for a bit and what he's doing.
Oh yeah.
But where someone mentioned here in chat they like provided a platform. I remember distinctly a conversation with them, and we talked briefly. There's a couple of parties that we attended together at. Well, I was, I think, out of the school at that point, like transferred. I wasn't like graduated. And then we met at some parties and like chatted a little bit, but we kind of hit it off more online and in cyber realm than real life. But where you mentioned the whole Twitch thing, and like I'm having a great time on Twitch. I feel like I'm slacking on it compared to every other platform, but where you mentioned that and being like, hey, this is a thing. Or when I first switched to making the YouTube videos that I wanted to make, so I was like, hey, I see a lot of stuff that this makes it still, I'm just staying negative and jaded, I guess. I'm like, I saw stuff that I like disagree with, the things that I want to bring up and question, like I always felt like the communities that I was a part of, including school and otherwise, were ones where like stuff was taught pretty rigid and like, this is the best way to do this and the right way and the wrong way and all this. And I was like, I want to be a community where there is no right or wrong way, and where we question literally everything. And like that turn of my YouTube channel was kind of nuts and crazy. But that was another time too, I guess, with what Sam's saying, where it's like, I didn't expect that to be what was happening. Like I didn't expect to be pursuing a music theory channel, but that's what it is now. And like, it's been a great time. I need to head up, but this is great. Glad I was able to catch it. Let me know when this happens again. I'd love to join. Dude, our goal is every Tuesday. It didn't follow it this week, but I mean, fuck it. We'll figure it out, and I'll make sure to post. But thank you so much for being here. Okay, the thing we're gonna wrap on this, not like oof, but like complete. Sam, what are you doing with music that is happy, making you happy, or I guess happy music, and fulfilling during a pandemic?
Nothing, which has been really happy for me. No, I'm kidding. Well, partially. But like I said earlier, I mean, the production thing, I've been doing that pretty intensely for the last, like, I don't know, 4 months maybe. And that's been making me really happy. Doing this album with Dylan, that was the first time I got to, touch my bass consistently and play that like every day, which at first I was kind of like, oh, this sucks. And then after about 2 days, I was like, oh, wow, this is really great. This is nice to have. Because I'm a kind of player where when I have something to practice for or I have something to look forward to play, I really like practicing and preparing for that. But when I'm just kind of like floating, I'm just not really big. I just don't like just practicing for, I guess, to be better, which sounds bad, but as who I am as a person, I don't know why, but just like practicing to just for the sake of practicing, I just have a hard time with.
Sure.
So that's been cool. But then even unrelated to, what am I doing with music that makes me happy? Well, I guess things that make me happy for music, or like, I don't know, how am I trying to say it? Doing things there, because there's a lot of other things that I've been doing that have made me happy, that have positively affected my music. I guess is a way that I'm trying to say. So I've been reading a lot, which I haven't done in a long time, which has been super great. And that's been really great for me because I feel like reading, it kind of pulls my mind in the creative or abstract sense as well. And it can inspire me to think or play differently when I play music because I have all these other thoughts that are currently going on in my head that kind of helps me approach music differently. So adversely or objectively, or I don't know what the right word is, parallel wise to music, that's been making me happy to play music again. Yeah, and then just living life. I mean, there's not much life to be lived currently, and I don't mean that in like a depressing suicide way. I mean that more so in like the world is kind of closed at this point, which is hard because a lot of times a lot of inspiration or positivity for music came from just engaging in the world, like Dylan had mentioned earlier to that he said to his students. But that's also been weird, right? Because now we're all trapped inside, and for me, it's been making me think differently. I've been thinking a lot just with myself, because I'm really just with myself a lot of the times. And so that's been pulling out weird things within my own musical tastes and my own musical expression through my production, where sometimes I'll just create something and I'll be like, you know, I feel this way and I don't know really how to talk about it or say it, but I feel like I'm going to make this song and this is going to speak the things that I can't really say right now. And that's led to some pretty dark music, but I think it's relatively good and it's pretty cathartic. So yeah, I guess really that's it for what's making me happy with music.
Nice, man. That's what's up. This has been Late Night Thoughts with Sam. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much, guys. I'm going to end the recording, so the podcast is going to end right now.